Roster transactions settling down now for the San Francisco 49ers. Let's talk roles. Who's going to be out there on the field, key contributors, and rotations for week one when the 49ers hit the field in 2025 against the Seattle Seahawks. Coming at you right now, OT with BP, Brian Peacock and Jason Aponte. Picante style. We were going to talk about the uniforms right away, but the very first thing I'm going to bring up is I just realized my opening is very rivalry 49ers uniform themed. So let's save our takes for that. We'll break that down a little bit later in the show. Some folks I know are going to ask us about it in the chat here, Jason, as we are live. Let's talk San Francisco 49ers roster. What's going on with this football team? What to expect on the field now that we kind of look what this 53 is like? And we know who's going to be on the practice squad as well. And I think we got to start there because a little, maybe, I don't know if the rug was pulled out from under us or Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but he's not going to the 53. He's going to the practice squad, which I think tells me a lot about what the 49ers are thinking here with their roster. And that's even with the possibility of Kendrick Bourne joining the squad as well. So on the 53 now, Russell Gage has been signed, Jason. We got Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Sky Moore, Russell Gage, and Jordan Watkins. Cowing on IR, can return later in the season. So the 49ers have 5 wide receivers. 3 of them are healthy enough probably to play in week one. One will most likely not be involved. Jordan Watkins probably won't have a uniform in week one. We'll see how that goes. Juwan Jennings hopefully will have a uniform in week one for the San Francisco 49ers. And then 4 more wide receivers on the practice squad, if you consider Junior Bergen a wide receiver or just a return specialist. He does make it back to the practice squad. Robbie Chosen on the practice squad with Malik Turner, who are in camp with the 49ers. And then the newest addition, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, he goes to the practice squad and not the active roster. Does that tell us that he's going to be very expendable? Because I find it very interesting, Jason, that Demarcus Robinson, who is suspended for 3 games, and per NFL rules, you can bring a player up 3 times during the season from the practice squad. Is Marquez Valdez-Scantling brought in to be yo-yoed for 3 weeks until Demarcus Robinson comes back?
100%. I mean, they're up and down on game day, and I see a lot of people talking about his potential impact, and I think we're viewing his impact a little wrong when it comes to catches and what he can actually bring to the 49ers offense. Obviously, we know about the drops. We know how old he is, and you're probably wondering, well, Seattle needs receivers so badly, and they didn't keep him, but I hope he got his cardio in, or I hope that he's got his wind up, because I can see him starting at X and running a ton of clear out routes for underneath for George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and backside digs for Ricky Pearsall. So there's definitely a role for him. His impact is going to go further than the box score. Sure, he might catch a ball or two, but I think people are viewing it the wrong way. I don't think you should be looking at it like Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to come in here and just light up the scoreboard. But he does have a role and he does have an impact, and it definitely seems like he's going to be up and down for these 3 weeks before Demarcus Robinson's ready to go, and while they try to figure out what's going on with Juwan Jennings. And John Lynch was a little bit of a grumpy bear yesterday, at that press conference. I don't think I've ever seen him so, agitated.
A lot of people brought that to my attention. It's funny. I'm sure they're sick and tired of the whole contract thing and guys wanting a new contract and they just want to have their team together. And it's probably not exciting. And you know why coaches go gray early, and you know why GMs go gray early and their hair fall out and they age like presidents. Is because it takes 12 wide receivers for them to try to field a stinking roster, and only 3 of them are currently healthy. They have 12 receivers, Jason, between the 53-man roster, the practice squad, and the injured and suspended list. Cowing, the pup list for, I think it's still the pup list for 6 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever that is, right, for Brandon Ayuk. And then it is the suspended reserve list for Demarcus Robinson. 12 wide receivers to have 3 currently healthy on the roster. That'll make you a little bit grumpy for trying to put together a roster that is going to win some football games.
I agree, and I think that's really what it is. The indecision with the calf and the contract and them having to do the roster gymnastics while they try to figure out what's going on with them. It looks like, the guys haven't slept in days, right? Like they're trying to figure all this stuff out with waivers as well too, and who to pick up. And they did actually claim somebody who was claimed by the Bengals, but they had higher priority, so they ended up with the player. But yeah, the you have to imagine that the frustration is now palpable right now on August 28th while they're trying to put this roster together. And that's why if you're wondering why there's like, hey, there's 21, 22 guys in the trenches, it's because there's so much uncertainty. Now, the one thing that I will say, and the roster maneuvering is fascinating because there's different rules for different things. The fact that Jacob Cowing went to IR to bring back the punter means that they didn't have to declare him as returned, and he could, which we don't hope, he could just spend the season on IR and not be used as one of those 8 guys that could come back. And I think, the coaching staff has talked about them burning that way too early on. So that was actually a shrewd move as well too. It's just the little games that they've had to play with this roster. It's as not black and white as it's been for the entire time that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have been here with the 49ers.
I didn't catch the part about the 49ers claim. So who was the player they claimed they didn't get?
No. They got I want to say Justin Jefferson. They got Jordan Jefferson, but the Bengals put in a claim, and
okay.
And the 49ers were ahead of them.
I thought you said the Niners put in a claim on a player that another team got. So the Bengals also put a claim in on Jordan Jefferson.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry. And you know what's funny too is, speaking of like the rules and everything, is while people are like, well, why are you not willy-nilly, just putting in claims for everybody? It's because you have to sign them to the 53-man roster. You can't put those guys on practice squad. So if you're looking at guys and you're like, well, why didn't you put in a claim for Malachi Corey? Or why didn't you put in a claim for Cole Strange? Or why didn't you? Because you have to bring them to 53, and then you have to have a corresponding move, which is why Evan Anderson reverted back to the practice squad after he was waived.
There's no guarantee that Jordan Jefferson's better than Evan Anderson
That's true.
Or Sebastian Valdez, right? He was drafted higher. And clearly the 49ers had some interest in the draft last year, and they thought he was worth it. And that's one of the things I've kind of been struggling with here. And we could talk a little bit about the defensive line. But how is it a signal that the 49ers defensive line is potentially at defensive tackle specifically that bad that the guys who looked good in camp for the 49ers are still not that good compared to guys that can't even make rosters for other football teams? Because
what's funny,
I asked my guy Tony Wiggins, he's the host of Locked on Jaguars, like, what are the details? This is a second year player that was drafted in the 4th round. You don't usually cut those players. And he was like, yeah, he just wasn't good enough. Didn't have quote unquote it. Looks the part, didn't play the part. They needed a defensive tackle, and they had to go trade for Colin Saunders because Jordan Jefferson wasn't it for them. And the 49ers saw that and they're like, please, can we have that over these guys who looked good in camp for us?
I think they liked him in the draft process. I think, again, there's always the mystique of Chris Kosaric. And, when those guys are locked in on a player from the draft, they usually go back and get him. And that's usually why you'll see them try to take these cast-offs on. Like, anytime that you see them with a player that someone is saying, oh, well, we don't want him, you just have to assume that they really like them in the draft process. And I think that is something that I believe they mentioned as well, too, in the press conference as well. Like, we like them out of LSU, and we like this tape. I think that's really your first part of it. Now, what's really funny is this defensive line room, we were asking who's going to be able to field, who's going to get on the field for this team. And now everyone is kind of rounding back into shape. Yetur Gross-Matos is back, and all the rooks are ready to play. And now they've got an abundance of defensive linemen. It's gone from that to like too many guys in like 1 or 2 days. So it's interesting how the narrative switches so quickly about how are you gonna field a defensive lineman room to, oh shit, we gotta move out some of these guys that we thought that we were gonna have to count on in week 1. It's just funny how quickly that happens.
Let's keep this going and break down exactly what we think is going to happen on the defensive line, and we'll circle back to wide receivers. So I want to do that with the wide receivers as well. But I think maybe the defensive line is more interesting because it could go a lot of different ways, particularly so defensive tackle. The 49ers literally, this is why I was surprised about Jordan Jefferson, and I guess maybe there were no 3 techniques available, but the 49ers drafted 2 essentially nose tackles. I'm not buying Alfred Collins as anything other. I've not seen his ability to be a 3 tech yet, even though I think they kind of hoped he would be that, and he might still roll out there as that in week 1 for the 49ers. And then Sebastian Valdez, also like a power defensive tackle, a bigger tackle, not a pass rusher. the 49ers literally have one 3-tech on the entire roster, and it's Kalia Davis. And I think Kalia Davis was probably a bubble player, and I would have probably kept Sebastian Valdez, and luckily the Niners were able to keep him over Kalia Davis and Evan Anderson. Evan Anderson, now we'll see if he makes it. Did he make it back to the practice squad yet?
He
Evan
did.
Anderson? Okay.
He did.
So that was the final member of the 49ers practice squad then. It was Evan Anderson then. And so when it comes to who I would like to see on the as Kalia Davis essentially is the defensive version of Nick Sakel to me, where it's like, okay, I get it. He's one of the last guys on your roster. You like him. He's around. He can be part of a depth piece. But are you really excited to put him out there on the field? No, not really. And so that's kind of the vibe I get from Kalia Davis. He's the only player that's really a true 3-technique type of a player on the entire roster. Now, is that by design? Do they not care about that? Is Robert Saleh going to shock the world with how he deploys his defensive line, which I think is something we have to talk about? But if it's the similar wide 9 setup to what we've seen in the past, the two players I'm most comfortable with being out there in week 1 is Jordan Elliott, the veteran, and CJ West. I think that's the starting unit for me. Will it be the starting unit? Will roster politics get in the way of West winning the job, which I think he probably should, at least on early downs? And then at that point, would Kalia Davis even have a role? Because if you go to third downs, then you have Michael Williams or Yetur Gross-Matos maybe jumping in and rushing from the interior, and with CJ West leaving the field. And so those are sort of the questions I have. But right now, my projected 2 starters at defensive tackle, CJ West next to Jordan Elliott.
That's who I would say most likely, especially given Jordan Elliott's skill set of writing so well for NBC Sports and playing defensive tackle as a run stopper.
Exactly. That's really important. I kind of want to get Jordan, the other Jordan, the real Jordan Elliott, on this episode with us, maybe jumping in. He had some questions off the air, and I was like, we don't take questions off the air, man. You got to come jump on with us. He wants to rebrand us from Picante to a peacock.
I'll listen to it. I really respect Jordan Elliott's opinion on many things. He's a master troller of me. He's a very good friend. But what I was gonna say is, especially on base downs, Jordan Elliott's a run stuffer, and I think that's what you're gonna have to have out there on the field right now. It doesn't really knock your socks off as the type of player that is going to excite you when he comes on the field, but he does have a role. So if your goal and your emphasis is stopping the run and improving his run defense, he's going to be the one that'll probably be out there right away. And then the NASCAR package will be something of most likely Bosa, West, Gross-Matos, and Michael, right? Like and again, the flexibility of moving in Yetur inside, outside, and they talked about it again on a press conference yesterday, and the same thing with Michael. I do feel like Robert Saleh is going to surprise some people with the way that he deploys this line. You would have liked for, in a perfect world, which the 49ers, we don't live in, is you would have liked Bosa, West, Collins, and Michael to be your initial 4. I just don't know if they're going to be as confident in that. I think when you listen to the way that John Lynch talked yesterday about the rookies, CJ West having a hell of a camp, Michael was doing really good before he got nicked up, and Alfred Collins is improving, and like that's where you kind of just really have to understand that they know that it's going to take a little bit longer to unlock whatever it is that they want, and they're not really going to push him out there as a starter to start. But, in a perfect world, it would have been those 4. So I do agree. I think it's going to be Jordan Elliott, and I do think that you're going to see, some not funky packages, but things that are going to surprise some people, especially when you get into those pass rushing situations.
Is Alfred Collins improving?
I mean, he said that. He said that. I have seen some all right things. I've also seen his pad level too high. And, I've also seen him get blown off the ball a little bit. And if we're talking about when this is happening, it's obviously happening during preseason games and against backups. So that has to make you a little bit nervous, right? And obviously we have to shoot him some bail. Injured, right? The contract thing, right? And then he finally comes in. But it just sucks because you would like for this to have taken off right away. And it's going to take some time with Alfred Collins, and it's going to take some time for him to improve his technique and just get those pads a little bit lower. That's it.
Yeah, you got to fire off. He's too slow off the ball. He's one of the last guys to really be involved in a play. and playing too high. And those are things that are very difficult for a guy who's 6'6", 330 pounds to overcome, because those are common traits. It's why, someone that big is rare for them to be super athletic. And it's some of the questions I had pre-draft and as he was drafted, and going back after the draft and looking at his scouting report and seeing that play out on the field is sort of, cementing what he might be, which is not ever a pass rusher, I fear. And if you draft the top 50 defensive linemen, he has to be an absolute monster against the run, and pad levels are going to have to be very important there, or you have to get after the quarterback a little bit. And so right now, to me, and again, as Papa J says here in the chat, he'll be fine, needs more reps. And that might be the case. You're never going to bury a guy, and he could be a lot of things in the NFL. Not ready yet is kind of the way I would term it with Alfred Collins. But I think he'll be on the field because he was drafted high. He might be on the field ahead of Kalia Davis and CJ West potentially because of that. But there is something that's been coming out of Santa Clara, which have been some whispers of a 5-man front, which is intriguing, because at that point, I could start to see where it might be the best fit for Alfred Collins to play a almost 5 technique, like old school 3-4 defense type of a role, where he doesn't have to hunker down as much as a true nose. You don't have to be as much of a pass rusher, and you can really utilize your length a little bit more. And then you look at a rotation with a big, nasty 5-man front where you have Mykel Williams crashing from the edge to set the edge versus the run. You have maybe CJ West as a true nose tackle in the middle. And then you potentially have nose tackle leaves the field. And then you have someone like Mykel Williams coming in and playing a little bit more of that interior 5-tech role or 3-tech role and rushing the passer. And so that's an interesting thing. And I wonder if that's a wrinkle, if that's something we'll see a lot of. It's going to be a major feature. If it's like bye wide 9, here comes a completely different look from Robert Saleh with that front this season. So that's an interesting wrinkle, and it might benefit Alfred Collins a little bit more to play that kind of a role. But as a 3-tech, I don't see it. And as a nose, I don't see it if you can't play with leverage. So that's where I'm at with Alfred Collins. He would not be a big part of my rotation from what I've seen in the preseason. And if he's not, then it's either, Jefferson, Kalia Davis, or CJ West. And West and Davis are built similarly. I can't imagine Jefferson would come in. Jefferson and West are built similarly. Would Jefferson come in and play over West? I probably would think not. They're both 4th-round picks. One guy's performed well and already was on the roster, and one guy's brand new, so I wouldn't see that. And then Kalia Davis being the one guy who's shaped a little bit different could carve out a little bit of a role. And it gets just really convoluted with how they're going to roll out their defensive tackles this season. And I'm not sure how strong the unit's going to be altogether anyway.
I think it could be game plan specific as well, too. I think the idea of having a 5-man front might work in Seattle, especially with, our old buddy Clint Kubiak. Might be a way to curb some of that outside zone with what they plan to do with Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. It could just be a week-to-week thing. That they can get by in certain weeks with just 4 guys. They feel like this is a way to attack the defense. I'm really, really, really this week 1 game is really going to be about Shanahan against McDonald and Saleh against Kubiak. And I mean, every week it's always going to be coordinators and play callers against each other, but this opening week seems to be more geared towards that more than anything. And I think that might be one of the ways that they try to slow down Seattle's outside zone running with Kubiak, is maybe the 5-man front might work. So it's going to be interesting. I think that Saleh understands, who and when and how to break it out. And I would trust him on that. I am as curious as you are as whether it's going to be a staple or a wrinkle or just something that they break out, depending on what's going on in the game. But you have to imagine that week 1 is probably the best time to try to break that out, given the opponent and the game plan.
And I think the other part of it, if you're just kind of sleuth this thing and we're playing detective because they're not going to tell us what they're going to do, and they're not going to tell us exactly what scheme changes and things are happening. If I had to guess, Robert Saleh came in day 1. He's like, thanks for hiring me, bringing me back. This is not going to work, what you guys have been doing here. Let's We're going to change it wholesale. We're going to draft the first 5 guys on defense, and I will scheme up pass rush. We have to stop the stick and run. We have to get in 3rd and long, period, or else it doesn't matter who's rushing the passer. And I think that might be part of what we're seeing with all the personnel, the bigger bodies, the defensive tackle that we've been talking about for a while, that they need to come. They haven't replaced DJ Jones, and they were getting a little weird on the defensive line and saw like maybe even overcorrecting, and they've gone too far that way. And they're like, look, we need a lot of beef and we need power players up front, and you have to stop the run because this run defense just cannot work. This can't happen. What has been happening the last few years since I've been gone. I have a feeling that's kind of how things went with Robert Saleh, and that's why where they're at is like, we'll worry about pass rush if we get to 3rd down. They get to 3rd down first.
Look, I think the 49ers absolutely turned everything over to him because they were finally getting their guy. And if you look at the way that they've been going about getting defensive coordinators, this was very much a throwing themselves at the mercy of Robert Saleh. Like, please, we will give you anything if you come here and you take over this defense. Remember, the Steve Wilkes thing, they miss out, they swing and miss on, the Kansas City defensive coordinator, and they even wanted to ask Bill Belichick and swing and miss on that. Then you're just like, all right, Nick Sorensen, get in there. And, right now, Robert Saleh could have walked in there and said, you know what? I want to pick every single player. I'm going to change this defense. I'm going to call whatever I want. I want no input from Kyle Shanahan. And he could make all these demands, and the 49ers are like, you got it. Like, no problem. So, yeah, absolutely. This is his show. These are his players. This is his scheme. And he's going to run it the way that he wants to. I guarantee you that's part of the things that he said when he got into that negotiation room.
Real quick, I want to address something earlier from the chat.
Yep.
Wish they would have put in a claim for Esapole over Pleasance. I understand that sentiment, and I agree with that sentiment, but Pole was claimed with the 7th waiver position because he was claimed by the Jets. So the Niners could have put a claim in and not gotten him. So We'll never know because the 49ers won't tell us probably if they put a claim and didn't get a guy. So the Niners might have claimed him, but it wouldn't have mattered because the Jets had an earlier waiver claim priority than the 49ers. But I'm not super sold. Should we talk offensive line and offensive tackle? I mean, the starters, we know who the starters are going to be. I'm actually glad that Drew Moss made the team.
Me too.
Because I think of how he looked. I think it's probably more likely for teams to claim offensive linemen than defensive linemen right now. There's just not enough offensive linemen to go around in the NFL. Niners starting unit's going to be fine. They're going to be middle of the league, probably league average offensive line. Stay healthy, Trent Williams, though. And Dom Pooney hurt right now. I mean, Connor Colby, I think, is somebody that kind of improved. He had his best preseason game. I think it was the 3rd one. He played a lot at right guard. Would they throw the rookie in there as they did last year with Pooney? Would they throw the rookie in there to be the starter? Is Moss maybe better? I thought Moss probably outplayed him. But again, roster politics. I don't know if West is going to play over Collins, and I don't know if Moss would play over Connor Colby. But ideally, you don't have Pleasance playing offensive tackle for you this year. But there's nobody to claim. There's nobody to add to the roster at offensive tackles. You kind of have to roll with what you have, and they have a whole bunch of offensive linemen. I think they're still trying to figure that out, and they're not all going to be around for the whole season. Burford didn't look as good as Jalen Moore as the backup to Trent Williams. Could get dicey on the offensive line. Depth not great there.
I'll do you one better. Okay. Instead of Trent Williams stay healthy, Colton McKivitz stay healthy, please.
Well, yeah, and because it's a left-right tackle thing. Burford was only playing left tackle, right? He wasn't even backing up at guard. Like Burford, it's weird because Kyle Shanahan at the beginning of camp said that we know Burford can play guard, but when there was the injury, they didn't, and maybe they're like, just whatever. Hey, Spencer, Pooney can't play. We're not gonna put the rookie out there. Go play right guard. Maybe that's what would happen anyway. And then if there's another injury, then he bounces out. Would he play right tackle though?
Austin Pleasance.
Yeah, I think it would be Pleasance at right tackle, and that's also weird because you have to be a little bit more versatile. Because Austin Pleasance, I don't know right now if he even gets a uniform. So I think Burford probably in practice secretly is probably starting to do a lot of right tackle and maybe even some right guard. Who knows?
And to be fair with Burford, he improved during the preseason. I felt like he got better, right? Like it could be
Denver and Benito. That wasn't a good look. If you just took that away, you probably wouldn't really have any misgivings about him being a backup offensive tackle.
Right, and let's be clear. the drop off from Trent Williams to anybody is going to be massive, right? And Jalen Moore did do a really good job. You know, like he did such a good job that it got him a starting job in Kansas City. Like
Well,
that
it
they had
almost
seen
did.
enough.
It almost did until they drafted a first round offensive tackle.
Don't they have him at right tackle?
Oh, do they? I haven't seen that.
Yeah. So they moved Moore over, and now Simmons, who's gonna play every single snap and be an All Pro at left tackle, because of course he is for Kansas City.
Okay.
So it sounds like they flipped him, but yeah, I Colton McKivitz has become the most important offensive lineman, and hear me out. Hear me out. I mean, yes, Trent Williams he's destined for a gold jacket. It's a big gold jacket that they're gonna give him. I understand. You know, we know he's gonna miss games though. But if Cole McKivitz goes down and misses many games, oh God, this gets really, really scary, because you start to look at the way they constructed this roster and you think, okay, Burford, you're 1-for-1 at left tackle. Is Austin Pleasance your right tackle for him? Oh God, like this is gonna get really scary. So I hate to say it, the whipping boy, I mean, it's between him and Jake Brendel at this point. The whipping boy of 49ers fans' ire for the offensive line has turned into an invaluable piece for this line and cannot miss games. Otherwise, this can really go sideways. It's just kind of the comedy of the NFL, and it has a nice little way to, throw itself back at people, you know?
And I wonder what the long term plan is for Moss. Is it center potentially? And it's hard for a rookie in Kyle Shanahan's offense to play center, which is something probably you shouldn't expect. So maybe it's like, okay, play the year at guard, get some work in practice at center, but rookie can't play center. So you got to keep Hennessy. Hennessy wasn't super impressive to me either. And that's why we talk about like that second unit offensive line, zero movement in the run game. Like it was not good. It was not a good situation. And it wasn't just because times when they were playing against ones, they were playing against twos and threes and still didn't look good.
Yeah, and I think again, we talk about the way we view players and the way the 49ers and especially Chris Forrester views players, because you can bet that he's in there banging the drum for Matt Hennessy to stay. And remember they poached him off the practice squad last season. It's how we see things and how the 49ers see things, particularly with the offensive line, are two different things. I think Jay Brendel's one of the best centers in the league. Well, objectively, that's wrong. But, there's nothing wrong with you hyping up your player or anything like that. I don't think he's necessarily as poor as he's been labeled, but I definitely don't. I know he's not one of the better ones. But again, when you're in that circle, when you're in that favor of Forrester and Shanahan, you're gonna stick around, and they're gonna believe in you. So that is one of the biggest criticisms, I think, of the way that the 49ers have done business with the offensive line is, guys, why is he still out there? Why is he still out there? Well, when you're in the circle, the trust circle, like in Meet the Parents, you're not getting out, like, unless you really do something egregious. And even then, they'll probably give you another shot.
Or you get too expensive.
Mm-hmm. Well, like McKivitz.
To let you walk. Right. And so you got to get that figured out. It's a fascinating way to build a football team. And do they paint themselves into a corner where they just have to take best available player at a certain position? Now you're forcing need in the draft, which we know things can go bad there too. And they're right now not wanting to spend a lot of money in free agency. It's like they're offering Amari Cooper veteran minimum to come in. Like that's where the 49ers are right now as far as their cash spending with all the contracts they have doing their new.
Brian, am I tripping that I don't think that it necessarily was the money, and more that Amari Cooper, they offered Amari Cooper a role that he just wasn't comfortable with? Like, hey, listen, we need you for our first few weeks, but like when these guys are back, we may phase you out. Like, I don't think he was comfortable with that part of it.
Yeah, and it was possibly both, and it was probably the money went along with the role that they were offering him too.
That's why. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And I think that's why we're seeing with Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they didn't want to put him even on the 53 right now because they didn't want his yearly salary to be guaranteed because he might be gone by week 4 if everyone's healthy.
Yeah. And look, the way we're looking at this 53-man roster, it may look drastically different by week 4. Again, like you talked about it, the guys who are going to be up, and I guess this is the way that we transition back to the wide receivers. The guys that are going to be up, Russell Gage is on the 53. He's certainly going to be there. I see Robbie Chosen and Marcus Valdez-Scantling being two of the activations that are going to be added up there as well, too. I don't think they want Sky Moore to be out there, like, if we want to be completely frank. And if Juwan Jennings is not going to be there, Jordan Watkins is not going to be there, it has to be those two guys, right?
I would imagine. And if Jennings can play, then maybe just one of them. And if no Jennings, then maybe both of them. And Sky Moore is just kind of return man. But I guess there's kind of a role for everybody just because stylistically, Marquez Valdez-Scantling's an X, right?
Yeah.
And Sky Moore is an F, which is the kind of the number 3 wide receiver slot.
Right, and he doesn't mean F as a grade. He doesn't mean F as a grade.
Yeah. He would be that as well if he asked Kansas City Chiefs fans. But how is Pearsall the most important player of the Niners this year?
Yeah, man. Yes, absolutely.
Or at least right now for the first month.
For sure, absolutely. I remember we were talking during the offseason about, and this has nothing to do with anything that's real, but fantasy football, right? And you're just like, oh, I'm gonna have a lot of Ricky Pearsall. I'm like, yeah, I absolutely reached on him in the draft just because I know that he has to be that guy. Now, again, we're talking about a role, and I'm glad that you said that MVS is an X because he is, and he's not gonna catch many passes, but I think to get the ball rolling with Ricky early in the season, play him as Z. Let MVS run these clear outs, open up those backside digs, get him off of the number 1 corner, make sure get him rolling. And I think this is the way, if you're looking for impact from Marquez Valdez-Scantling, don't look at the box score. Look at how he stylistically fits this offense and that role for them. And if you need evidence of that, last season he split time with Buffalo and New Orleans. Clint Kubiak was the coordinator over there. And he actually succeeded over there for a little while. Like, it almost got to a few weeks where he had 89 yards and 100 yards, and people were like, oh man, is he unlocked? He's still that player, and he's still like a lower rung wide receiver, but his impact is going to go farther than the box score. Now, if you want to look at it, I guess a little bit more with the glass half empty, it's like, okay, well, Kubiak wanted him back in Seattle. They need wide receivers, and they still didn't want to keep him. But again, I think if you're talking about for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever this is, what it's going to look like, he still can have an impact on this offense without catching passes. And I think that is directly tied to what can happen with Ricky Pearsall and how quickly you can get him rolling and start to, like a shooter, see the ball go through the hoop, confidence goes through the roof, and then if push comes to shove, by the time that they want, Brandon Ayuk is back, and you're already comfortable in that role, and now the offense is moving in the right direction.
It's crazy how late you could get Ricky Pearsall in your fantasy leagues earlier on in the summer.
I got him in the 9th.
Yeah, I was telling people. Now he's up to like the 6th round, which is still a buy for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's going to be the number 1. I would put money on him leading the 49ers in receptions this year.
Yeah.
Especially over of the wide receivers.
Absolutely.
And that's even if Juwan Jennings is healthy and plays the entire season from week 1.
100%. And I think people are still buying the idea that Jennings is going to be, their week 1 and the number 1 guy. I mean, not the people that follow the team, but the outsiders, right? Like the people that you're drafting with that aren't 49ers fans are still buying that's why you can still get him on the dip. And what's even worse, and this is the worst stuff that I'm seeing too, fantasy analysts, I have a love-hate relationship. I love a lot of them. Some of them are really good friends, and I think they do really good work. Some of them are the absolute worst analysts in the history of the world, and I've seen a bunch of them saying, do we even know if Ricky Pearsall is good? And it's just like, bro, if you just want to throw shit at the wall and just have it there just in case, like, he gets hurt or something like that, and you could be like, ha, I said it, cool, but you're making yourself sound stupid. Like, and that's the reason that most people have such a poor opinion of fantasy analysts.
Well, a lot of fantasy analysts too lean so heavily on the numbers and on the usage and what's the percentage, and they try to glean from last year's usage and numbers what a player is going to be this year, and with zero tape. And to be honest with you, if you only watch tape and didn't look at any numbers, it'd probably be better, but still, that's not the full picture. Use everything. Use everything you have at your disposal. It takes time to watch tape. That's the hard part. You can't be a family analyst and watch tape of 90 running backs. Like, you just can't.
And let me tell you something. I love football. I love the game of football. I think it's the best sport in the world. It's literally the job that I have is to watch football. Watching the film is not easy, and I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy it. I do it because I just want to be informed. I have to tape my eyes open because I don't enjoy it. It's not something I do because I enjoy it. I'll be honest.
Right. And for me, it's something that you're looking for specifically, right? Or else, I'm not going to go through a game and watch every play 900 times to watch every single guy and try to find, I'm looking for something specific when I'm going to the tape at this point. And I love that now in the draft process that there's so dude, thank you so much to all the people out there that have the time on their hands to make these cut ups of draft prospects, so you can just watch play after play after play after play. Awesome. I'd love you guys. Thank you so much for those people.
Think about this. There's a New Orleans Saints reporter or content creator that has to watch their film every single week. I'd lose my mind. They're the worst team in football, like by far. By far. You know, at least the 49ers are interesting.
They're not a good football team. They are hoping that they can get another Manning. The Manning.
Yeah.
That should be the goal, but they don't act like they're going to be bad. They're like signing Alvin Kamara to a new contract. They don't think they're the most delusional franchise. I have no idea what the Saints are doing. I have no idea what they're ever doing with any of their. I would put the Saints at number 1, and then it's like Browns, Bengals is kind of 2 and 3. Probably Browns 2, and then maybe a little gap, and then the Bengals. Like almost every time they do something, like, what are you doing? Like, what is even? Who runs this team? And they're like the ultimate. I think it was actually a perfect example of this too, because like you do draft coverage, and then fans will get mad at you because you're like, oh yeah, I'm not sure about this move. Maybe I would have drafted this player instead. And you're always going to get the guy who's like, all caps. I think they know better than you do, right? And then I think the perfect example of that is just like, well, how about the best head coach in NFL history, who just and the Patriots just cut Cole Strange, their first round pick,
and he reached.
Yeah, and go look at that draft. That's 2022. That was not; those guys are all in the rookie contract still. One player is still on the roster from that draft on that football team. The best head coach ever sucks at drafting players, or started to suck. He was good for a while. I don't know what happened. He was awful at the end of his tenure for the Patriots.
I'll do you one better. The copium that was spent from fans about trying to justify the Jake Moody pick was, well, Belichick was going to draft him. Let him.
Yeah, so what? That's always my example. That's always my response to anybody. It was like, oh, well, he was going to be gone by the time the 49ers next pick came up. Okay, draft a different guy. It's not a one player draft. It never is. And so that was kind of the Trey Lance thing too. It was like, oh, the Falcons are going to take him. That would have been awesome. That would have been great for the 49ers to stay at 12 and let the Falcons take Trey Lance, right? That would have been enough. That would have been a good thing.
And instead of having a contract standoff with Jawan Jennings, they could have had a contract standoff with Micah Parsons.
Right, exactly. So yeah, teams screw things up sometimes. That's the bottom line there.
Yeah. Do you want to get into or do you have anything else? Or did you
asking about the role for Russell Gage, and my response to that is I have no idea.
Well, he's a 53
emergency, like a professional wide receiver, I think is his role. And like, if they need him and the numbers say he's on the field, then he can play for you. And if not, he's probably not going to do much.
It was a vote of confidence for, like, John Lynch was like, no, he's on the 53.
Yeah.
Like, he's on his way back. Like, that was a vote of confidence. And when I did my projection, I didn't see how they could keep him off the roster given all of the uncertainty with everyone else. And thank God that they were able to maneuver it in the way that they did. But I think the vote of confidence on having him at the 53 is, one, the salary is going to be, very low, obviously, when you have him on there. And I do think that, if push comes to shove, I think they would like to see him on the field in a certain role. Like, I think, again, if we're talking about 2 receiver sets, you're probably looking at Marquez Valdes-Scantling at X and Ricky Pearsall at Z. If you're looking at what's going to be a little bit more spread out, I would have to imagine you'd probably see George Kittle. You might even see Christian McCaffrey in that wide back role that we've talked about, like where Debo was, and Brian Robinson on the field. So 22 personnel. I hope you guys enjoy 22 personnel, because that seems like it's going to even jump up higher, because it already was one of their highest personnel packages with Juice and McCaffrey. So I do think that they have him there because they trust him, but I don't think that they're running to jump out and throw him out there. I think they're going to have different ways, in almost the same way that we're talking about the 5-man front. I think this first week, they're going to try to experiment with all these other things before they have to really push to have him get significant snaps.
And the one thing about Marquez Valdes-Scantling, he doesn't really fit the Kyle Shanahan modus operandi, which is kind of, why he probably doesn't draft these linear, fast, downfield, tall wide receivers, because they're not good at working in the slot or doing some other things. And he likes his receivers to be able to play all 3 positions, so he can, put everybody where they need to be on any given play. And obviously some players are better at doing some things than others, but If looking at the roster the way it was today, I don't think Marquez Valdez-Scantling would necessarily play over Gage. Today, right now, I think if they had to field a team, it would be Gage with Pearsall as the starter. But it might be like, okay, then Marquez Valdez-Scantling comes in on 3 wide receiver sets and Pearsall's in the slot, or maybe it's Sky Moore's in the slot and somebody else leaves the field instead. So that's kind of would be a little bit mix and match at that point. But I think it's safe to say, just the way they've built the roster and put guys where they are, I think that Gage is ahead of MVS at this point, especially with the development today that one guy's on the roster, and emphatically so, according to John Lynch, and MVS's practice squad guy, which means non-guaranteed contract, which means he could be gone soon.
Yeah, they have different ways that they're going to go about this. I think we've kind of surmised that when you look at who's eventually healthy and stuff like that. So, I just wouldn't be shocked if we start to see a little bit of the stuff that, and I always keep thinking about this because, speaking of watching tape, I remember when I first started working for 49ers Web Zone, it was right before the 2019 season. And they had just signed Tevin Coleman, and I was like, oh, well, I got to get to this Tevin Coleman tape. And then I cherry picked the game where he had a really good game, which was against Denver. But they ran a bunch of stuff that was empty with him in the slot in that game, and he was tearing them up. And remember, Denver had a really good defense at that time. And I still can see something like that happening with Christian McCaffrey, and it may push them in a spot where they don't need to have as many wide receivers on the field as possible, because you do have capable pass catchers at tight end and running back. So it's going to be interesting to see how they mix and match. And I think as the game goes on, depending on what's been working, what hasn't been working, what Mike McDonald is throwing out there. By the way, he was throwing some exotic shit out there. If that was vanilla in preseason, oh my God, man, when they really start to get into that defensive install, things are going to change rapidly post snap. So I think depending on how that's going and how the 49ers are adjusting to that and beating that is where you'll see them mix and matching with the pass catchers.
And I've been talking about it for a long time. And I think we kind of always get there every offseason and it doesn't really happen. But Christian McCaffrey, the next wide back, let's do it. Now's the perfect time. You're light on wide receivers. Get him out there in the slot. Utilize it. You traded for Brian Robinson, right? You got Isaac Guerrero. I think Jordan James would be a really nice fit if he's healthy, and he might be ready to go as well as in week 1. So utilize the talent that you have. I don't think it's necessarily going to happen. I'm not expecting it, but I think there's a possibility to see that. And is your second best wide receiver right now healthy on the roster? Is it Christian McCaffrey? At least top 3, right? So, and you could do some really fun things and play with the heads of a defense that hasn't seen it and doesn't know what it's going to look like, and have Robinson out there at the same time with Christian McCaffrey. And Robinson's a big enough guy that he could be a lead blocker if you need him to, if you wanted to do that. And so I think you can do a lot of things and really have some head spinning with how versatile Christian McCaffrey is. And by the way, keep him healthier, not only for the season, but elongate his career. And Christian McCaffrey knows that wide receivers make more than running backs. Receptions are more valuable than carries. I would think that Christian McCaffrey, who's kind of been his own coach since he's been here, he says when he's on the field and when he's off the field. And so it's like, he should probably be leading the charge to be like, hey, guess what? I am kind of as much a wide receiver as I am a running back. And it wouldn't be quite the split of Deebo Samuel. It would be the reverse split. Put him out there.
Looking forward to the contract negotiation when Christian McCaffrey says, all right, I want to raise now next season, so we can have that as a
wide receiver. So let's go $30 million a year.
That could be a standoff. But yeah, for sure. And what's funny is, I don't know if you got a chance to listen or if anybody else did, John Lynch was on KNBR talking about the big role that Brian Robinson is going to have. Big role. Like he didn't emphasize, oh, he's just here to kind of clean up. Big role. That's a sign. And he also shot some praise from Jordan James' way, where he said, we thought he was going to be running back too right away. And that
it makes me so glad to hear that, because I was telling everybody not only to draft Ricky Pearsall months ago, he's the guy to own for the 49ers wide receiver group. I was also telling everybody, don't put your eggs in the Isaac Guerrero basket. I think he is a change of pace type of player. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. You can do a lot of things with him. He would not be the main back if Christian McCaffrey was hurt. And I thought before the injury, Jordan James was earning that role and was a much better fit for that role. And I'm glad to hear confirmation on that from John Lynch, because I think it's pretty obvious. And Grendo's a good player. He's just not. He started one game in college. He's just not a bell cow back. It's not what he is. It's not his fault. He can still be a very valuable player and be that change of pace guy. But here's the thing is you can kind of start to build that. So you have, okay, here's a role for this kind of running back. Here's a role for this kind of running back. And so like, let's say you have this big role for Christian McCaffrey and he gets hurt. Well, Garendo can kind of do a lot of those things. So you don't have to like scrap the whole thing because he is a former wide receiver that you don't want him taking all the carries. So he'd be like kind of a secondary piece and an extra piece and a gadgety almost player. You could have a lot of fun with it. I don't know if Kyle Shanahan wants to run his offense that way. And I'll believe it when I see it that the running back too has a big role in the 49ers offense. Like you can talk about it, but I'll believe it when I see it. I'm skeptical there because it doesn't happen.
And a few years ago, after Christian McCaffrey had gotten there, and I think it was the year that he was already set to start, where I can't remember which coach it was, but he talked about having guys that have the same skill set as Christian McCaffrey to keep Kyle Shanahan in rhythm as a play caller and also keep those things in mind for the defense. And that's what Isaac Garendo is, former wide receiver, guy who can split out wide, right? What we saw in the small glimpses last season was a home run hitter, a guy who maybe can't live up to, taking that sort of pounding in between the tackles, but he has damn good hands. I mean, there was 2 or 3 really, really nice catches from him. It's using and utilizing skill sets to maximize efficiency, and that's what Garendo should be, right? Now, last year he was the handcuff. This year, I don't think so. I think obviously it's Brian Robinson, but it probably would have been Jordan James, just like John Lynch said. Again, I say this all the time on my show and on my channel, and you guys are probably sick of hearing me saying it, is I don't ask my plumber to fix my roof. If you're not good at something, I'm not going to make you do it over and over again to not get what I need from you. Like, if you're a plumber, fix my toilet. You're a roofer, fix my roof. If Garendo's a guy who can catch the football and he has to be pressed in the playing time, use him correctly. And try to save him from himself because he can't seem to stay healthy. And again, it's the same thing with McCaffrey. Not only do you want to maximize him this season because he's so vital to this offense, the 49ers are looking to all of their high-end guys to carry them this season. That's literally what the mantra is. So they all have to be on the field as many downs as possible. This is all just lending itself to that idea.
Which also brings us to George Kittle and maybe the guy that should have the most targets per game of anybody on the team.
Yes.
And he should have, even more so now with what's going on with the injuries in wide receiver, and he should have already had an uptick on what he was already going to get as if Brandon Ayuk was healthy. We talk about it every week on Locked On 49ers. Like, can we feed George Kittle even more? Maybe this is
Here's your big brain idea, Brian. Good football player gets the ball more.
Yes, I'm in.
Yeah, and the thing is you're seeing it across the league, right? McBride, Bowers. For how many years was it Kelsey, especially after Tyreek Hill was out, right? It doesn't hurt to throw the ball more to him. The idea that we have and the reason that we fight so hard for George Kittle to be named the number 1 tight end in football, which smart people know, is when you look at what he did last year with 37 less targets and 30-something receptions less than Bowers and McBride, and they had similar numbers. I mean, I'm no mathematician, but if we just raise those numbers a little, I'm sure that we'll see a good return on that. So yeah, this has to be a huge George Kittle season, has to be a huge Christian McCaffrey season, has to be a huge Fred Warner, Trent Williams, all their high-end guys, Nick Bosa, all their high-end guys have to really lift this roster up while they're getting everything else together. And that's what Kyle Shanahan was talking about on SiriusXM, about this is the time that we are going to be leaning on our guys. You pay them a lot, they're very good, but we just want to be playing the best football we can going into the playoffs after we sneak in. That's what it is. And that's why I had no problem with that, because it was transparent. It felt honest. And he said it again in the press conference about we need to be playing our best football. You want to go into the playoffs, as the 49ers have many times under Kyle Shanahan, as that team that nobody wants to play or nobody wants to see. But you don't get that without constant improvement from everyone else while the high-end talent is lifting you up. And that's exactly what he was talking about. And I for one, can't believe that he was being as honest. Yesterday's press conference was very strange for 2 reasons. One, John Lynch was a big grumpy bear. And Kyle Shanahan was chilling. Like nothing, like everything was fine. He was like, yeah, Juwan's not here, but, I'm not really too worried about it. I'm just like, dude, like, the roles are flipped. Like it's what? Like it's usually John Lynch that's chilling, and it's Kyle Shanahan. But you can tell John Lynch has been in that negotiation room too long, and he's sick of it
Yeah.
already.
It's also like one of the longest days for a GM in the NFL that day to have to speak after the waiver wire and the cut down and all the conversations they have to have with all the players and all the phone calls you have to make. Because for every deal that you see is done, there's 1,000 other phone calls that go into that deal and every other deal that you didn't get done too. So that's probably part of it for John Lynch. He probably just needed a stinking nap.
Well, and then we have our esteemed media group, giving out the hard hitting questions like, is Ricky Pearsall going to be accepted into the Yak Bros? Just hard hitting journalism. That's the stuff. That's the stuff that we need to hear. That's the stuff that this team has so many things that you need answered, and you put your hand up and you said, is Ricky Pearsall going to be in the Yak Bros now that Deebo Samuel's not there? Like, what? Take the credential away, whoever that was, please.
At least they didn't ask about the engagement. And I'm not even going to say what engagement that is, but
yeah,
it's none of my business, and I don't want to talk about anybody else's engagement. How about where are we at here? We've talked about I see some talk in the chat about picking up the blitz. I am thankful that we at least got to see one preseason game of Jeff Wilson back picking up the blitz.
Mm-hmm.
Just annihilating fools. He did it a couple times, and it's a very underrated part of playing running back in the NFL. And Jeff Wilson's really good at it.
And I'm glad you brought that up because Miami claimed him on the practice squad, but we got a little insight into that because Jalen Wright had to have a surgery, so it was going to be Ali Garden and Mike McDaniel. He got the band back together. Jeff Wilson and Jermichael Hasty are on the Miami practice squad. Mostert went to Las Vegas, but what's another 49ers running back that played during that time that they're missing? I think they're just missing one for the Infinity Gauntlet.
Well, both Trey Sermon and Ty Davis Price got released. So
Trey Sermon reverted to Pittsburgh's practice squad, if I'm not mistaken. He's there. And Ty Davis Price, I don't know if he made it back to the Packers practice squad because I was watching that game against Seattle and they're like, Ty Davis Price. And I was like, now there's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Let me ask you this. This reminds me. And do you think the 49ers lean too much into familiarity?
Yes.
It's like a big part of the Junior Bergen draft pick was like whoever it was on the coaching staff went to Montana.
But Boyer's son
was a boy. Yeah, it's like, so what are we doing? That's not a reason to draft a player. Lean on your scouting staff to pick the best players and go draft them. The Ty Davis Price pick. Brian Robinson Jr. was on the board. He went like 4 picks later. They took Ty Davis Price, even though they liked Brian Robinson. Why'd you take Ty Davis Price? Because your new running backs coach, Anthony Lynn, they was like, they just let him have a pick. Sure, pick your guy, Ty Davis Price. Well, he should be drafted in the 6th round, but let's take him in the 3rd. Why not? Because and Adrian Martinez, who they brought in, by the way, from my neck of the woods. So rooting for Adrian Martinez. Why'd you bring him in? Well, he was in camp one time with the Jets. And so Robert Saleh was like, yeah, I don't know. I liked him. So let's bring him in. Okay. Why did they claim Jordan Jefferson? Ethan Waugh. He was assistant GM with the Jaguars last year when they drafted him. Now his whole staff got fired because they drafted a whole bunch of Jordan Jeffersons, right? And now he's back with the 49ers. So he drafted his guy who already failed with the first team he drafted him for. So it's like there's so much familiarity with everything. I think sometimes it leads to good moves, and familiarity can really help because you know what you're getting. And then sometimes it's like, just draft the best player. I don't care where he went to school or like what the guy's name is and he's related to somebody. Like, can you just draft the best football players and let's not lean so much into familiarity on everything.
Let's take it a step further. I mean, you ever wonder why it's the same guys that just keep coming back to the practice squad and keep coming back? They're like, this guy again. Like, I mean, I know that this is a little bit further off, but Dante Johnson, they literally call him the Barnacle, right? Like,
yeah, it is interesting because you didn't like a player enough to keep him on your roster, but you still love them more than the other 600 guys that were cut. There wasn't anybody that you liked better that you could have tried to bring back to the practice squad instead. I do find that fascinating. For a lot of teams. And I think a lot of it is, you did bring the guys in that you like for a reason, and they know the system. It's hard to teach a new thing to guys. But I mean, there had to be more players that the Niners would have tried to get onto the practice squad than just only their guys.
Yeah. And there's obviously pros and cons to familiarity, right? Like, they can come in, hit the ground running, but also, you're kind of limiting what, what you're getting. And I think that's that's always been my contention with Kyle Shanahan a little bit, and especially when I was doing my 53-man projection, I thought that Jeff Wilson was going to stay just because of that, the familiarity part, where it's just like Kyle knows what he can do and set his watch to it. Also, by the way, if we ever got to a position where Jeff Wilson had to play, it's not good for the 49ers running backs. No disrespect to him. It just means that everybody else is hurt, which is not a good thing. But I do think that they do lean into that a lot more than they should. There's pros and cons, but ultimately that safeness and that trust, it caps your upside with other players that maybe might have to have a little bit more of a learning curve. And I'm not going to sit here and act like roster construction's easy, because my God, the hoops that these guys are going through right now with this 53-man roster is insane. I'm not saying that at all, but I'd like to see some more risks taken with different players. Now, on the flip side, we're talking about all the risks that they've taken in the draft, and we're like, man, this is not working out. Like, why did they even take this risk? So maybe I should just stop talking at this point.
Adrian Martinez, by the way, Fossey in the chat says, "Where's Martinez from?" He's from, I think he grew up in Hanford, California. Went to Clovis West. I'm a Visalia, California guy, so kind of triangulated right in that same area.
This is a great point by him.
He says Martinez will be a good scout team quarterback with his legs, getting the defense ready for some mobile quarterbacks on the schedule. I think that is a good point, and it's definitely something that's that a team can utilize with an athletic quarterback. You don't have to do the thing where you put a wide receiver back there. You actually have someone who can throw the ball and play quarterback. He's an interesting fit because he's athletic. He's kind of bounced around, had a fascinating career going from he was going to go to Cal. They decided to go to Nebraska instead, and then went to, I think it was Kansas State, and then UFL MVP, won a championship in the UFL. Then was with the Jets last year, bounced around a couple of rosters. I think maybe undrafted, went to the Lions roster first. And throws a nice ball and has athleticism, obviously, dual threat type of a quarterback. The big and actually, I think it looked good. They were calling him the Tom Brady of Jets preseason. Like, he was playing really good in the preseason and looked good in camp. The one thing he's done, which is, I don't know the fit as far as like actually playing and being more than a scout team guy for the 49ers and in Kyle Shanahan's offense, is he turns the ball over a lot and throws the ball to the other team a lot. And it's really tough in Kyle Shanahan's offense with the throws and the reads you have to make over the middle of the field. Is he that type of a guy? I don't know. But again, he's a practice squad quarterback. So I think some utility there. Just get an athletic guy in, get a look at him. Saleh obviously liked him. Again, familiarity. Saleh liked him. And we'll see how long he's the number 3 in the practice squad guy for the 49ers. I have a feeling they would bring in another veteran, whether it's Sudfeld or whatever, if there was an injury and they needed someone actually to be up.
Well, the good news is that Martinez has week 2 out, because if they want to scout team Spencer Rattler, they could put a trash receptacle back there at quarterback. Oh, that was that was rude, man. I don't know where that came from. That was horrible, man. I'm sorry.
The New Orleans Saints, man.
No, you know what it is? I just I have that Spencer Rattler clip in my mind of him like being like an absolute jerk to all of his teammates, and I've not wished anything well on him, because I just don't. I dislike people like that disrespect his teammates in that way, and he's not that good. So.
Yeah,
that was rude. That was rude.
He's the best quarterback they got. What are the Saints doing? Do not ask me.
I don't know, man.
I think linebacker, defensive back, we haven't talked about. Do you have any thoughts there before we go about the usage and in the roles for these guys in week 1?
No, linebacker is pretty set. I mean, it's Luke Gifford that'll probably be in there if there's ever a third linebacker on the field, in base downs.
He's the only guy that's practiced at strong side linebacker on the roster. So
right, yeah.
I don't know how often the Niners are going to be in that look, but
right, yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like I think they can still stay in base with two linebackers. I don't necessarily think they're going to be out there with 3, most of the time. But it would be Gifford.
Have to if they run a 5-man line.
Right, exactly, and you know what? That could be something that we see in week 1 with the defensive backs. Richie Grant got let go, and I saw people saying, "Hey, we only have a certain amount of safeties now." Well, Saron Neal doubles as a corner and a safety, so that really makes that easier for them to alleviate that loss. So they, it's not as bad as you think. And Jair Brown is still here, and you still need him. It's clear that they don't want him to be on the field starting, but it's clear that they cannot move away from him right now, given the lack of experience in the room and while they're waiting for Malik Mustafa. So if you're wondering why Richie Grant is gone and how many safeties, Saron Neal doubles as both, and that makes it way easier for them to move on from him.
Chase Lucas get some look at safety as well. I feel like he's got the skill set to be able to do that.
I think Chase Lucas kicked out Dallas Flowers. And I think Chase Lucas is a guy that's going to be outside like right away. I think he'll be out there before Darrell Luter. And God help us. I hope not. I hope that we don't have to get there, right? Because we're talking about like places that can't have injuries We cannot afford a Diamador Lenore or Renardo Green injury at all. Like
Yeah.
at all, right? Those guys are irreplaceable. It's gonna get scary. But I do think that Chase Lucas showed enough. Obviously, being the backup to Upton Stout, but I have a feeling that he would be the first one off the bench in case of one of those injuries. Even though they're showing a lot of confidence in the fact that they like Darrell Luter, I think that they've been able to justify it with the special teams prowess.
And don't be shocked if Richie Grant's on speed dial and in fact ends up on the practice squad tomorrow or whatever.
Familiarity, right? Just sitting there by the phone and everything. Also, by the way, Miami, I see you. You want Jeff Wilson. You need a kicker. Stay away from Greg Joseph. Stop bringing him in to kick. That's our guy to to make sure that just in case things go awry here. That's our guy. Get away from him.
I think that'll be telling as well if all of a sudden the 49ers throw a little kicker on the practice squad.
Oh, well, I think he has to know that it's still he has to know that I love that Kyle Shanahan was like, well, it doesn't matter if there's another kicker on the roster. You absolutely are competing with someone because you can go find one off the street. Funny how now you can find one off the street now. It's like they came to this realization. They were like, oh, well, we can just get a guy off the street. That should have been what you were thinking the entire time.
Well, right. And I think the big thing for Kyle Shanahan is that he didn't want to have to worry about it and think about it. And all he ended up doing was making himself worry about it and thinking about it more by drafting the 3rd round kicker. He had hoped that if you just throw money at a problem, right? Just go, if you have a kid that's upset and whining, just go give him some ice cream and it'll be okay. But all that's going to happen is you're going to give them a sugar high and they're going to be even more ornery, right? We all know this. And so I think that's what happened with the 3rd round pick. Like, well, look, we just get the best kicker, then we'll have the best kicker, right? That's easy. We'll fix that problem with the 3rd round pick. And all it did was just magnify the problem even more.
I just imagine the thought process of it. And it's just like, we're just going to take the best kicker. Brilliant. I love it. Let's go get some lunch.
Dude, that's a good idea. All right. 3rd round pick, 3rd round done. Bad tight end, bad kicker. Let's go.
And then Cam Latu right after, man. That's just like, my goodness, that draft is looking worse and worse as the days go by.
Jair Brown, though, hanging in there.
Yeah, he's hanging in there. But I do think that
is it
when Malik?
The last question. Is it Siegel or Brown? It feels like Pennick's going to start, right?
Yes, it's Siegel. It's clear that they don't want to have Brown out there. And I think once they really have a grasp, because I know they love Siegel, we have to see Pinnock in this role. So the reason that you keep Brown around is because if Pinnock isn't somebody who immediately hits the ground running or is somebody who struggles, you can still pivot to him. If Siegel is somebody who, is taking his bumps and bruises, you can try to pivot to him. But if those two become proven commodities and then Malik Mustafa comes back, then you'll really see motion about them trying to move Jair Brown. And that just seems like a move destined to send him back to Steve Wilkes with the New York Jets, because I felt like that was a lot of his fingerprints all over that.
That's it for this episode of Picante Overtime with Brian Peacock.
Wait.
Did we?
Yeah, we forgot.
Oh, yeah.
Happy
in the chat. Maybe people aren't waiting with bated breath for our opinions on the rivalry jersey.
I appreciate that we were able to go an hour without it, but happy rivalry jersey reveal day to those who celebrate. Brian and I think we saw it around the same time, which was about a month ago. And I wasn't impressed. I will say this.
Good on you for not leaking it to social media. Everyone held their water on that, which I was surprised, because I knew if I was seeing it, a lot of people were seeing it as well.
100%. I'm not special either. I agree 100%. I will say this. I think that now that I've seen them a little bit more up close with clearer pictures, they've improved, but I still don't like them. And I'm not saying this to be controversial or, piss people off. I have an opinion just like you guys do. And if you enjoy the jersey, more power to you. That's all that matters. If you like it, that's great. Who cares if I don't like it? I'm just, some idiot from New Jersey. Who cares? But the jersey itself, it looks like when you go on Temu.com and you put in 49ers jersey, it looks like a variant. And you're like, what jersey is this? I've never seen Brock Purdy wear this. That's what it reminds me of. And I do think that I didn't see the helmet. That's what really was kind of like, I didn't know what the helmet was going to look like. The helmet doesn't necessarily help it. I could have just stuck with the gold one, in my opinion, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love it. It looked like a flea market knockoff the first time I saw it. I think they, jazzed it up and used some camera tricks and with the reveal videos. So we'll see what it actually looks like in practice and out on the field. I think it does look better with the black pants and the black helmet. And you see the whole look together probably helps it out. With the saloon font too, I don't think the saloon font is meant to be the main attraction. It's like having a side dish as your main dinner, right? You need a little bit more protein there, and it gets a little gaudy, gets a little. Now you have a border plus saloon font, which is already busy, plus like the shadow of the border. It's too much, and then you have the faithful, which is a different font also. It gets a little bit much for me. I much preferred the old black jerseys. I think the real big thing with the old black jersey they had 10 years ago was that it was just hard to read the number, but much cleaner. It's not a clean look, I think, with this new rivalry jersey. And let's be honest what things are. This is a cash grab for Nike and the NFL. They want to sell you a bunch of stuff. If you like it, buy it, wear it. I don't own jerseys. I wouldn't buy it even if I loved it, but I don't think it's a great look. It's a one-off. They'll wear it once and that's fine.
You know what's funny? I'm old enough to remember when they used to teach script in school, and I have excellent penmanship, and I actually know how to script. And that F looks like the proper Q, which is the backwards 2.
Oh.
And that part is the part that throws me off as well too. That faithful right above the numbers, I can't stand it.
It's also a different font. So now you have multiple fonts on one jersey. And so you have the saloon font. Now you have the faithful font that looks like it's thrown in there. And does it push the number down? McCaffrey walking around looked like the number's a little low, like around the belly rather than a little, I don't know. That was just, I don't know. It's whatever. It's a cash grab. If you like it, buy it.
Buy it.
Did not love it. I think it looked better in the reveal videos and stuff. But again, those are like, they had it all dark. You couldn't even hardly see all of the look together. But gold face mask on the helmet too.
I will say this: Mac Jones and Isaac Guerrero are going to look amazing in that when they play and use it in Week 18 because the 49ers are not going to be playing for anything. They're going to have their playoff seating locked up.
Okay. You know what's interesting though with the saloon font, like the 13 on Brock Purdy looks a little iffy. The 23 kind of busy, but the 54 looks better. And the single digits, I think, look better too because there's a lot going on, so there's just less there.
Lenore's looks nice.
Lenore from the back is probably the best picture of it, but I don't think that's necessary. And I think it probably looks better from the back than the front with the faithful. The back looks better with the name and the single digit number. But again, like if you have to worry about what's on it and what number it is and the angle, then it's probably not a hit for me. But whatever, to each their own.
Yeah, for sure. If you like it, that's all that matters, and that's all I've been telling people all day. Is just if you like it, then great. Like I have no bearing on that, and I love that a lot of people like it. That's a good thing, right? The Lenore one is probably the cleanest one. That number 2, that one is clean.
God, the first time I saw the leaked image of it, which I know now is the actual real, it's like that's a flea market knockoff uniform. That looks like. That was my and that's a picture of the actual jersey. So, and it's not all glossed up. It's not got smoke and lighting. And some of these videos and pictures is not actually even the real jersey that's in the picture too. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like in practice.
It was giving swap meet. That's what I was getting from it.
Sure.
I was just like, in Jersey, we have this place in Union City that's called like Bergen Line Avenue. And you can walk on there and they have a bunch of stores that'll have like a Kobe Bryant Lakers jersey, but you can tell it's clearly not a jersey that Kobe's ever worn. Or a Puerto Rico 23 jersey. I'm Puerto Rican. I don't know why 23 would be the number. Maybe 21 would have been better for Roberto Clemente, but that's the ilk and that's the vibe I got from it. But again, who cares what I think? If you like it, please, by all means, go out and buy it, wear it, enjoy it. Just don't expect to see any of your 49ers stars wearing it in Week 18 because that game's not going to matter. The 49ers are going to be well on their way to a playoff berth and they're going to be resting everybody.
I'm glad you said it was going to be Guerrero and Mac Jones. I thought you were going to say Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey are going to be hurt. And I was like,
no.
And we haven't started Week 1 yet, Aponte. Come on.
I saw your face too, and you didn't know where I was going with it either. You were just like, no, and you were like, oh, thank God. Like, yeah, that's because I tried to say that as well too. Like on Twitter, I was like, look, Mac Jones is gonna absolutely cook in this, and they're like, brother, I don't want to see Mac Jones. I'm like, no, it's because the game won't matter. The 49ers already had their playoff seating set up.
We don't need another year like that.
No.
Here's the other thing. It reminds me of when that was probably 15 years ago. I was on the bus or the train or whatever in the city, maybe going to work and maybe coming home from work. I don't know. It was like after school time, and there was a kid who was probably junior high or high school age, and he was wearing a jersey that I'd never seen before. It was like a Celtics jersey or something like that, and happened to be black. And it was like something that wasn't even one of their alternates where they do wear a black jersey. It was just a weird looking jersey. It's like, oh, I'd never seen that. I felt like the old guy who's like asked the kid to name 3 songs of the band they're wearing on the shirt. And I was just like, I don't know, it's just me and this kid. There's not a lot of people in the bus. I was like, oh, what's that jersey from? He's like, oh, it's a throwback. I was like, I don't think you know what that word means. They've never worn that jersey. I think mom and dad might have gone to the swap meet and bought you some knockoff. And it was like, I didn't have the heart to go any further. I was like, oh, interesting.
It's a throwback. It's excellent. It's literally all they ever wore was white and green.
Well, you're not very old, but they definitely didn't wear that thing.
I forgot about all the videos of Bill Russell running around in an all-black jersey, man. How could I forget?
Throwback. All right.
Oh, man.
There we go. New jerseys, new rosters, new players. It's 2025. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Subscribe to Sprint Right Option featuring Aponte, Niners Nation. You can find Jason Aponte's work at Jason Aponte 2103 on Twitter. You can find me at BD Peacock. I'm also doing Locked On 49ers daily. 2 more shows per week now on Locked On 49ers as well, because we got the Locked On 49ers squad shows featuring 4-time Super Bowl champion Dwayne Board. Also, former Tecmo Bowl athlete Dwayne Board as well is part of that. And the Peacock and Williamson show daily. So there's a lot of Peacock and a lot of Aponte, but there's only one time you can find the Picante, and that is right here. So thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time. Jason, do you have any messages for the folks before we go?
No, guys, enjoy your holiday. Around this time, 4 hours from now, next week, there will be actual NFL football on our screen. And today is the first of 5 straight days of college football as well.
We're a week away from the NFL season. Let's go. Picante.